All right. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom, everyone. Islam to all the Moors. Welcome back. I'm happy to be back. I am Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. This is the free astrotheology course. And this is our textbook is The Celestial Ship of the North by E. Valencia Straighton, Volume 1. Okay. So we took a little break when I did the origin of God, the origin of the concept of God, and later, of course, that concept was developed uh, into a mystical or mystery being, right? It is the concept is given the attributes or faculties of the workshop of the mind. So the concept of God, the circle, right, and Ra, radius, area, pi, which was derived through the polynomials. There were 96, so on and so forth. And then, of course, that was given, I guess, the functionality. I don't know how to say it right now, but the workshop of the mind was assigned to it, to that concept. And that initial mystery being becomes the Father, all right, becomes the Father deity. Anyway, let's move on from that. I think I'm going to come back and do one more video about the origin of the concept of God. And I'm going to focus more on the square. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to do it, but I might. Anyway, let's pick it back up. Page 166, the last paragraph at the bottom. I know I've read this paragraph before, but I want to bring something to you all's attention. Okay, so let's begin, page 166. So 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 6 is 13. So there's one JC, one Jesus, and he has 12 apostles. So that's 13, which is perfect rulership, which is a good luck number for those secret society members who have been showed the game, or they know the truth about astrotheology and these solar religions, and they have been groomed or in a position to rule over the masses. So 13 is a good luck number for them, but it's a bad luck number for everyone else because of what it means, which is that they will have complete, unchallenged, and unchallengeable authority over your mind and your physical body. All right, so what you think, how you perceive, how you interact with your environment, and then what you actually do and what you believe you can and can't do. All right? All right. So those 12 apostles represent the 12 zodiac signs. Zodiac, of course, is where we get zoo from. Well, zoo is where we get zodiac, actually. So the Maserati, the Zoad, blah, 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 blah. Zoo, kingdom, as in kingdom of animals, as in JC's prayer at Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, the Lord's Prayer. 6, of course, and 9 is law of uh, the law of gender, the Hermetic law of gender. 6 is the masculine extremity of the line, and then 9 is the feminine extreme end of the lines. Okay. So that's the Lord's Prayer, our Father, let your kingdom come. So this kingdom of animals, and of course the SUN sun in the center, blah, 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 blah. All right, so page 166. By tracing history back to its starry origins, So starry origins would be reckoning time and reality by the stars. One is sure to find a safe original anchorage. So what the author is saying is that all of this stuff has one starting point. Let me not say starting point, goes back to one place and one time. And this was a time when there was peace, brotherhood, and unity on earth. There were no mystery schools because science, engineering, architecture was common knowledge to the masses of people. There were no external deities. Everyone saved themselves, if you will. All right? All astronomical myths began with the dark or night. Began with the dark or night and the primal Typhonian cult. So it began with the dark or the night. This is referencing the Great Mother Typhoon. This is actually referencing consciousness or the Hermetic law of mentalism. Close your eyes, and it is dark. That's consciousness. You don't need your physical eyes in order to experience consciousness. Is it clear? Is it clear? So consciousness is the Hermetic law of mentalism. Everything has its origin in consciousness, okay? Awareness, all imagination, all that there ever could be and is. Okay, yo? So all astronomical myths began with the dark or the night. And remember also, is it page 9, y'all, or page 14? Yeah, page 9, second paragraph. Darkness adopted illumination in order to make itself visible. Out from the boundless abyss of darkness acted upon by divine power, so that would be will, right? Came the holy light. Paracelsus called the sidereal mother, to whom the name of the astral light had been given, a name never given to the Father. So here we're dealing with feminine energy and feminine energy only, or the fatherless son. The Great Mother Typhoon has a son. The son has no father. Why? Because the Great Mother Typhoon had no husband and she also had no father. This is where we get the mother and the son and the fatherless child. All right. Uh, should I? I'm going to keep going. Uh, and a name never given to the father or the fatherless son of the Immaculate Mother who was placed on the physical plane. So the Immaculate Mother is placed on the physical plane. The physical plane is where the laws of physics, at least as we know them, are operative. And then as above, so below, as below, so above, which is the Hermetic law of correspondence. We see the Great Mother, feminine energy, and then on the earth plane, we see the Moabitess, okay? The Aboriginal or Moorish woman, all right, y'all? This Holy Spirit, the Great Mother, so the Great Mother is the Holy Spirit. It's symbolized by a great tree whose branches spread over the entire world and reach above the heavens. Now that's very interesting, but we'll come back to that. That's not what I'm working with right now. Let's go back to one paragraph above, well, the middle of the paragraph where we started, the second paragraph from the top. Night and darkness belong as symbols to a very great antiquity. A superabundance of darkness metaphysically is light. So, of course, the author here is referencing light as we know it or sunlight. Okay, y'all? So this is talking about the raw classification of deities. Because everyone says, okay, the sun produces light, and then the light is what makes life possible on earth. But our ancient ancestors didn't say that. Our ancient ancestors said that when you look in the sky, what you see as a sun emitting light is actually an illusion. Because what's really happening is that the dark original or central sun is behind the sun, or what we call the SUN sun. And the SUN sun that we see is reflecting dark rays, and we perceive it as light. Do y'all see it? So, in other words, if you could reach up in the sky, put your hand on the sun, right? You put your hands on the sun and pull it apart. Behind it, you see the dark central sun. Or look at it this way. Let's say this piece of wallpaper. Okay, let's say there's a circle here. Okay, I move the circle, and behind the wallpaper is the central sun. This is what they're saying. So the sun we see is actually just a hole. It's just a hole reflecting dark rays. This is how our ancestors perceived it or saw it. So let's look at page 14. The footnote 2. The Egyptians symbolically named capital God, God, the quote unquote ancient darkness. The Egyptians symbolically named God the ancient darkness. So let's think about that. That means that everything you have been taught to associate with God, with deity, with goodness, with honor, with respectability, with power, with wisdom, with restraint. Did I mention honor? All of these things were referred to as ancient darkness, not light. Not light, but ancient darkness. So let's continue. Of this darkness, or let's say of this God, of this darkness, H.P. Blavatsky writes, quote unquote, darkness is the root of light. So now we see why darkness is the root of light. Because the sun, the SUN sun, all stars, all of them, reflect dark rays, reflect darkness. They're just reflectors, reflecting darkness, and then we perceive the reflection as sunlight or starlight. Okay, y'all? So let's keep it going. Light is matter. Light is matter. E equals mc squared. Light is matter. Darkness is pure spirit. Darkness is pure energy, not matter. In fact, y'all think of it this way. Think about the Hermetic law of vibration. The Hermetic law of mentalism is vibrating the fastest, right? It just has to be because the other six come from it. It's vibrating so fast that it looks like it's not moving at all, right? Like if you look at a wheel, the spokes of a wheel, it can go so fast where it looks like it's not moving at all. But it can also, that's one end. Now consider the law of polarity or law of opposites, right? Look at the extreme opposite end of that. The wheel is moving so slowly, so low vibrational. The wheel is moving so slowly, it looks like it's not moving at all. And in the center, it's in between, right? So that's the whole spectrum. All right. So darkness is pure spirit. Darkness metaphysically, listen, y'all, darkness metaphysically is absolute light. Darkness metaphysically is absolute light. Light is merely a mass of shadows. Has to be. Why? Because the light is a reflection of the darkness. The light is a reflection of the darkness. Light is merely a mass of shadows, as it can never be eternal. Of course it can't, because it's a reflection, right? And it's simply an illusion or Maya. All right, there we have it. Oh, let me go back here. Serpent work. The next paragraph underneath footnote 2. Serpent worship, tree worship, and water worship were all feminine. So remember, the serpent and the tree represent the great mother, but also the water. We have the great water fish, which is the hippo. Okay, the hippopotamus was one of the symbols of the great mother typhoon, and one of the original. Okay, so they're all feminine gender, feminine energy. The serpent slowed periodically as the feminine type, and the bearing tree with this fruit was feminine. Sounds like the Garden of Eden, right? Y'all, the tree of life, and then the serpent and the tree. And water was feminine. And water was feminine. And the source of life. That's very interesting, the mother. Let me read that again. And the bearing tree with its fruit was feminine, and water was feminine, and the source of life, the mother. Now, why is this significant? Why is water being feminine significant? Y'all think about this really quickly. If you know something about the topic, this jumps right out at you if it's at the top of your mind. If you've been watching my work, it should jump right out at you. Who remembers? Well, here at TI is. This is why water, this is page 14, y'all. Don't forget this, page 14. One, one, two. Second paragraph down. One, two. Second paragraph down, third and fourth line. Third and fourth line. And water was feminine and the source of life. And water was feminine and the source of life. What was JC's first miracle? Everyone remember? His first miracle was turning water into wine. And in the Far East, I forgot which of the Hindustani. Oh, it'll come to me. When it comes to me, I'll tell y'all. But Hindustan, for right now, the deity. So we already know we're in the solar period because we're talking about external deities, right? So we know we're somewhere between. Well, we're not further back than 4,500 BCE, which is when Pharaoh Menes comes in, the first human pharaoh, and Pharaoh Menes ushers in all of this stuff about the solar deities. Okay, now according to Dr. Ben says that there were three Happies who were pharaohs, if I remember correctly. Uh, Narma, if I remember, I'm gonna have to go back and check this, y'all. Um, Narma, the Greeks called minis. Either Narma was not, but then there were two happies. I don't remember if Narma was also called happy, and then there were two more for a total of three happy pharaohs. I'm going to go back and check it. But anyway, that's according to Dr. Ben. So JC's first miracle was turning water into wine. And according to this Hindustan religious mythology, the deity whose name is rain represents the water or the rain coming down into the ground. Everybody sees where it's going, right? Coming down into the ground, and of course, the ground is feminine. The ground is a womb. So this water represents semen. The deity rain lets his water flow, his semen flow from above. It gets absorbed into the ground, impregnates the ground. So this impregnation of the ground is the same as the concept of uh, fecundities. What's the word? Fecundity, something like that. I should look that up. Do I? No, my phone is charging. Fecundity, meaning that the ground is in a situation where it's highly fertile or highly productive. Okay? So what's happening here? What's happening? Springtime. So springtime, of course, for the solarites is happening in the East Gate. It's happening in the East Gate, Aries and Ram, sometime around March 22nd of every year, springtime. So the snow thaws out, right? The snow thaws out, and the spring rains come with the winds and all of that. The crops are able to access water and nutrients, and they mature up in the summer. They mature in June, July. The intense heat of the sun fecundates, fecundates the earth and pushes the plants from being mature, and their fruits ripen. Okay, and their fruits ripen. And then on before September, well, September 29th is the end of the grape harvest. That's the last day of the year where you can gather in sweet grapes to make wine. Any grapes harvested after September 29 are going to be vinegary, okay? Because the energy is not inside of them due to the lack of sun energy that they contain. So anything that you squeeze from them is only good for making vinegar. All right, so JC's first miracle was turning water into wine, as I just said. Okay, so the miracle was the deity rain releasing his ejaculation, which is supposed to be water, impregnating Mother Earth, right? And then after the thaw, after the winter thaw, that water and nutrients in the soil from the process of decay, right, or the life cycle, nutrients are due to decomposition, the nutrients are available in the soil, and then we get the spring rains, and you get some rain in the summer. You need to irrigate and all of that, and then ultimately in the fall, during harvest time, you get your harvest. So water literally was turned into wine, and this is where this is the story in nature. The JC's first miracle It's telleth. But now we see that water, y'all, is feminine. So now we have water, which is feminine, and the sun. We have the great mother Typhoon and her son Soot, the dog star. Soot being remixed in the gospel story as Jesus. Do y'all see it? Everybody see that? Jesus is Soot, the dog star. Soot, if you remember, Soot gets planetarized into Saturn and the sun sun. All right, and then of course the sun, as we read a few maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, the son becomes the father in the later story. Okay, y'all. So let's go back to that's very interesting. Let me read the next sentence on page 14. Motherhood antedated by eons of time. In other words, motherhood by eons of time is older than any knowledge of a fatherhood that could have been identified as such, and even among the original seven gods, later planets, there was no mention of fatherhood. So, who are these original seven gods? These are the seven stars that make up the thigh of the Great Bear, today called the Big Dipper, which represents the Great Mother Typhoon, the constellation called the Big Dipper in the North Celestial Pole region. Those seven stars, again, were actually first they were deified. And then each of those deities were planetarized. Okay, y'all? And then, of course, Soot becomes uh, Saturn. All right, y'all? So, I'm gonna do some research to try to find the arguments against the existence of planets. That might sound stupid or a waste of time. It might be a waste of time, but it needs to be done because we need to confirm uh, that it is ridiculous to believe that there are no planets. Okay, it needs to be confirmed because here what we're seeing is that uh, the, the seven stars were first turned into gods, and then these gods were turned into planets. So did the planets already exist, or did they just make them up? Right? What's the evidence that these planets actually exist? I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying we need to check it. All right, we need to thoroughly check it out. Wouldn't that be a trip, y'all? If the evidence supporting the existence of planets is not strong, wouldn't that be a trip? But anyway, give me 1 second. Hold on. All right. So I'm between appointments. So anyway, so if y'all want to do the research, y'all check it out, update me. Remember, argument against, not argument for, argument against the existence of planets. Okay? Um, where are we? Oh, page 14, yeah. Notice this, the Hindu initiates whose vision was sublime, meaning the Hindus had an excellent knowledge of astronomy and astrology. Recognize God, this concept that we call God, they saw it as the one who is all. Well, obviously, that's a Hermetic law, right? All, the mind. Okay, the universe exists in the mind of the all. All right, which we are apt to veil in the present era. All right, so now in the far off beginning, everything was Sabian, i.e., belonging to the stars. It was only later when Sabian, in parentheses, it says star, and then lunar, moon period. So this is why in C.M. Bay's work, he emphasizes we need to have an understanding of the astrology associated with the moon, not just the SUN sun. If I have time, I'll go over that. All right. So belonging to the stars, it was only later when Sabian star and then lunar, which is moon periods, had made way for the solar or SUN sun periods that a male element appears. So do y'all see that? We went from the stars to the moon. That's a decline, right? Or a moving away from our mothers and fathers mindset. And then now where we're at right now, which is the SUN sun. But I wish I knew the story, or I could find the story as to what caused us to fall down into doing things, reckoning time and reality by the moon. Okay, so some people will say, well, these changes happen as we gain more knowledge. Well, no. That's not true. See, that type of logic is coming from the philosophy or theory of evolution, where everything is simple. No to little complexity. Well, let's say no complexity to highly complex. Well, that goes against the second law of thermodynamics. That's just not how systems work. So our knowledge in the beginning was perfect, and there was a decline. That's consistent with science, and that's consistent with everybody's experience, including yours, if you think about it. But anyway, let's keep it going. So no, they didn't learn more. No. They already knew. It's already here in the consciousness. It's the decline. And then this information uh, being held back from the masses and hoarded for criminal enterprise and purpose. Okay, that's the only way this makes sense. Okay, but anyway, let's continue. In the far off beginning, everything was Sabian, i.e., belonging to the stars, perfect knowledge, perfect mindset. Our mindset and the flesh perfectly reflected the Hermetic law of mentalism. Our self image, our self concept, and our behavior perfectly reflected nature and natural law, if y'all understand what I mean. Or, in other words, as above, so below, as below, so above. There was no disturbance, or disturbance is not the word I want. What do you call it, y'all, when you look at an image? or let's say there were no flaws. Yeah, there were no flaws in the way we saw ourselves, our self-image, and the way we behave, and then who we really are in terms of the great I am that exists outside of the fleshly body. Right? Everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay, they were totally in harmony. All right. So let's continue. Should I? As opposed to now, well, where the vast majority of people, they have a self-image, um, and it's in many ways negative. Okay, in many ways, most people have limitations imposed, well, that they accepted, right? They don't see themselves who they actually are. So, but when you see yourself as you actually are, which is boundless, timeless, and limitless, well, now that's a perfect reflection. Okay, it's a perfect reflection. All right, so y'all, the sun is so bright, um, I can barely see. So, where are we? Page 14. So, in that far off beginning, everything was Sabian, i.e., belonging to the stars. It was only later when Sabian or star and then lunar or moon periods had made way for solar periods. Well, so what is this saying? This is saying that the Solarites destroyed, physically destroyed, and then libel, slander, defamed the Sabians. All right? Slander, label. Let me see if I hold on. Yeah, let me turn the comments on. I don't know if the comments are on. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure the comments are on. All right. I think the comments are on. All right. So there was no, this is a very politically correct way of saying that these Solarites, the Osirians, the Ammonites, etc., waged war against their own flesh and blood brethren. And many of them were probably hybrids also, right? And they destroyed the mindset of the Sabians. In other words, Circle 7, Clock of Destiny, Workshop of the Mind, Natural Law, Don't Steal, Don't Injure Anyone. These were removed from the consciousness and daily practice of the people, okay? And they were replaced with sun, SU, sun worship, um, uh, and dogmatic religion. So he continues. So had made way for solar or sun periods that a male element, in other words, male deities, the patriarchy, and introduces the male and female as separate deities. In other words, instead of you having the Hermetic law of gender with feminine energy on one extreme end of the line and masculine uh, energy at the other end of the line of gender, they separated them. Now there's a male god and a female god. Y'all got it? For in the beginning, all was considered in double aspect as male female by Jung. Okay, there's a law of polarity. We discussed that when we talked about the original concept of God. Hold on, y'all. When we talked about the original concept of God, the law of polarity. Remember when there's a circle? For example, the palm of my hand is a circle. The center is the north celestial pole. The circle or the palm of my hand is the universe, all right? Everything that exists or that ever could exist has to be within this circle. And this circle, the boundary or the circumference, is a force field, keeping everything inside of the universe. So, if you recall, let's say the North Pole here, let's say you're standing in the North Pole. If you move in any direction, doesn't matter what direction you move in any direction, there's going to be an opposite. So for example, here, let's say I move here, the opposite of here is where? There. The opposite of here is there. If I'm here, the opposite of down here is where? Up here. Okay? But not only that, to keep the system in equilibrium, no matter where you move, there's an equal and opposite force, right? There's an equal and opposite force being exerted, no matter where you go. An equal and opposite force is being exerted to keep everything within the force field and to keep it at equilibrium. So this is what they're talking about here. All right, the male, female, the masculine energy, the feminine energy, the Hermetic law of polarity, if you will, or the law of opposites, right? Also, that law of opposites applies to the Hermetic laws, as we talked about earlier. Law of vibration, right? Moving so fast, it looks like it's not moving at all. Opposite end of that is moving so slow that it looks like it's not moving at all, right? Or hot and cold, total opposites, right? The law of opposites. Rhythm, moving in, moving out. Also cycles, right? Cycles, rhythm, cycles, creating time. Okay. So I'm going to read this first sentence in the first paragraph on page 15, then we'll go back to page 166. When at the advent of the solar period, this is with Osiris and his crew, his boys, the worship of the fatherhood in heaven became established. So for the hundreds of thousands, millions, billions, and whatever numbers that are larger than that we autochthonous Sabian Moors, the Aboriginal people, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, have been on this earth. There was no sun worship. There was no glorified, deified Father in the form that we know it. It did not happen until Osiris and his boys, his crew, came in with warfare, deception, and birthright theft and terrorism to bring that into existence. Deception and defamation of the Great Mother Typhoon and her son Sut. In other words, everyone who kept the mindset of their ancient foremothers and forefathers. So when did it happen? Around 4,500 BCE, when Pharaoh Menes came in, the first human pharaoh. Y'all remember that? Okay, so that's the point. It says here, when the advent of the solar period, the worship of fatherhood in heaven became established. Then time was reckoned by the sun sun. So this cannot be the mindset of our ancient foremothers and forefathers. Time was reckoned by the sun sun instead of, as formerly, by the stars, Sabian, the Sabian period, and the moon, the Sabian period. Everyone see that? So in other words, what we know as ancient Egypt with the Giza pyramids and all of that. According to the story, these are all solar. These pharaohs pushed the solar zodiac. Their mindset was solar, which is leading us back into the point I wanted to make on page 167. So let's go back. I hope that's clear. Prophet Noble Darrell-El told us to return to the mindset of our ancient foremothers and forefathers. It's not me saying it. He said it. And during the Solarite period, there has been nothing but war, pain, suffering, deception, ignorance, and abuse of people physically and mentally. This is during the Solarites period. The solar zodiac and the solar religions. It's all been bad for everybody. But as the author tells us, during the Sabian period, everything was wonderful. The world was at peace, a global brotherhood. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. If not, I'm going to keep going. I have. Here we are, page 10. The religion of ancient peoples. Let's talk about of course, what they're talking about religion is not the religion that we know today. So, of course, this is a mindset of nature, circle 7, clock of destiny, natural law, do harmony, one, workshop of the mind, as we discussed before, the stellar time and reality, right? Reckoning time by the stars, reckoning reality by the stars. So the religion of the ancient peoples, the Sabian Moors, seem to have been one throughout the entire world. A great brotherhood, a universal faith, meaning science, y'all, not religion. Remember, there were no external gods. Strange has been the impulse of priests and theologians to deviate from the ancient holiness, which was so solemn and majestic in primeval days, and to instruct the masses in false doctrines. Okay, so during the Sabian period, the whole world was at peace. The wheels didn't fall off until the Solarites came. Okay, under Pharaoh Menes. So let's go back to page 167. Page 166, last paragraph. By tracing back history to its starry origins, one is sure to find a safe, original anchorage. Everything goes back to the Sabian period, the Great Mother Typhoon and her son, the dog star. In other words, circle 7, clock of destiny, workshop of the mind, and natural law, don't steal. All astronomical myths began with the dark or night. In the primal Typhonian cult, is what we just talked about, originating in that wonderful birthplace, the celestial north, home of the ancient Mother Typhoon. Now, here's the point that I want to emphasize. In inner Africa, the symbols and types of primal Typhonian cult still remain extant in primitive form. Y'all got that? In other words, well, let me let the author speak. As they obtained previous to the immigration down the valley of the Nile, which initiated the civilization of Egypt itself. What did he just say? Hold on. What did he just say? Or what did she just say, rather? She just said that, hold on. I'm going to show you a video. What she said is that Nubia, Ethiopia, as Dr. Ben tells us, were the mother and grandmother of what later becomes Egypt or Kemet. And Dr. Ben, the whole thing about the universe being a circle and Ra meaning radius and area of a circle, radius and area of a circle, which was derived through the knowledge of pi, polygonal, 96 side, polygonal, 96, which was used to determine uh, the area of the circle, to describe the circle rather. Y'all remember that? I got that from Dr. Ben. I'm going to show y'all the video where he went over it. So all of the algebra, the geometry that came from that, and then the calculus, so on and so forth, all of that came from that. This is before Egypt. This information was found, according to Dr. Ben, in inner Africa before Egypt ever was. And the Egyptians picked it up. The Kemites picked it up, okay? What we know as Kemet today, they picked it up. All right, y'all? So let me show y'all this video so y'all can go check it out. So what does it mean? It means we need to start studying those ancient cultures so that we can learn what the Sabian culture is, because we're supposed to return to the mindset of our ancient foremothers and forefathers. Okay? So give me 1 second. I know I have it on my other device. I believe I have it. Usually I always see the video. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me show y'all this. Here we are. That's the video y'all want to watch, okay? This is what the author is talking about right here. Dr. Ben reveals the shocking truth. This channel is Historia Africana. People been watching. It's got 55,000 views. It's been up for 4 months. So here's the name. Here's the whole name of the video. Hold on. Y'all see his circle? The universe? All right. So Dr. Ben, the shocking truth about Nubia's role in Egypt's history. Not just Nubia, y'all, but Ethiopia too. In fact, let me see if I can find it. I am speaking of the goddess
the woman who was involved with the prosperity of the entire world community and the Nile Valley in particular. I am talking about Konsu's mother. Konsu is called various, was the Abad festival, the old grammar, whatnot. I have given that. I don't speak it because of the hate.
And also, one of the things I found very impactful, he's saying that the original Nubian people, the real Kemites in Egypt, he said they don't speak Arabic. He said they disdain, they hate Arabic. They refuse to speak it. It's not the original language. Y'all heard? Arabic is not the original language of the Kemites. Nobody spoke it, and they refuse to speak it today.
And they do not speak it not because they can't with the ancient brothers and sisters. Look. But it's not only that. It is unless you refuse to do the most essential thing.
All right.
To say, among other things, that the civilization of Egypt is a black civilization, and say it without a benefit of doubt, and deal with the race of Africa in terms of the Greeks of yesterday, the Greeks of today, and all other Europeans combined. And why do I say this? And why can't they say this? Because all of them, I can't say bar none, refuse to do the most essential thing. Get out of the library, get out of the museum, and go to the field. Take off your three-piece suit and the tie. You could use it. I use three-piece suit. This is my camouflage garment. My gig, as the brother said. But you have to go to the field to deal with that original work yourself. If you want to be a mother, you can't be a physician dealing with mother. You got to be a mother. Get pregnant, then you know what it is. You could be a faggot, that don't make you no mother. You could sympathize, but you will never know what it is to be a mother. You will never know what Egypt is unless you go and do that original spade work. How could I tell that Nubia is the mother of Egypt? Before I started my latest digging of a year and a half ago, every time I dug a spade, and it's not me alone, there's 6 other brothers, 6 Nubian brothers with me. But every time we bring up a shovel, I am not looking for the major find. I am looking for the tiniest bit of relic to put me back with the ancient brothers and sisters. But it's not only that. I go back to the ancient people, the ancient modern people, if you want to call them that, those Egyptians, those Nubians who cannot even speak today Arab. You'll be surprised to know that that there are thousands of Nubians who do not speak Arabic in Egypt. And they do not speak it not because they can't learn it, out of contempt for the conquerors. Some people ask, why don't you speak Arabic? You going to Egypt so long? I am not interested in Arabic. I'm not interested in English. I'm not interested in French. I'm not interested in any colonial language, so that if I don't speak or speak it out of its proper grammar or whatnot, I don't give a damn. I don't speak it because I hate the damn thing and the people that it belongs to. That's why I don't identify myself as English, French, Dutch, or anything like that. Now, in going back, then, these are the basics in which to understand the material that one uses. One must have the frame of mind one must place oneself in that of the actor, so to speak. One must become Ramesses to understand Ramesses. And one must become Nefertari to understand her. Let us go and see one of the points in which I knew that Egypt was the child of Nubia. The most essential sacred drama in all of Egypt was the Opet Festival, the O-P-E-T festival. And the Opet Festival came out of another festival.
My accent was so convincing in Mandarin.
Hold on, y'all.
They couldn't believe an American could sound that.
The festival of the love, the romantic prowess of the mother queen of all of Egypt. And I'm speaking about the goddess. Not the goddess that you know commonly and most shown over the heads of the pharaohs when they die. And yet she goes back way time. I am speaking about the goddess, the woman who was involved with the prosperity of the entire world community and the Nile Valley in particular. I am talking about Khonsu's mother. Khonsu is called various names, and I'm using the name that you're most familiar with. I am talking about goddess Mut, not goddess Nut. They're two different ones. M-U-T and N-U-T. Why is it that all the writings there's an emphasis on goddess Nut, but no emphasis on goddess Mut? Because it's clearly stated that goddess Mut is a southern goddess. Southern means Upper Nile. We must look back and say, was goddess Mut, was goddess Nut worship south of Egypt? Not at all. The ancient Nubians and Ethiopians, on the other hand, worship goddess Mut. Anywhere you go, to the beginning of the Nile, there are folklore about goddess Mut in Uganda up to today. As a matter of fact, there is folklore about goddess Mut in Nigeria today, coming to Nigeria by way of the Yoruba religion. There is mention of goddess Mut in all the way in Haiti, in Dambalawedo. Dambalawedo is a transition of the religion that comes to the Yoruba ceremonies. There is mention of goddess Mut in Maniquismo, in Cuba, and even in Puerto Rico, where we are talking about Santerismo, there's a mention of goddess Mut. So what has happened is that all over the continent there are emphasis about goddess Mut. And we cannot avoid it. We see the symbol of goddess Mut as far south as what was called Munamatapa, before the Europeans tell us we shouldn't call our own country Munamatapa. It is a bad word. And then we turn from that and call it now Namibia and the other name, Azania. I still say Munamatapa. Now, what we have to do in this case, and I know this lecture may sound rather strange to a lot of you, but I passed a certain stage now. It's introduced, take it, go with it. Now there's other stages you got to deal with. In other words, we're past first grade, second grade, we're past kindergarten, we're now in junior high school, we passed college, you got the doctorate, now let's go to the postdoctoral lessons. See, let us go to the one that you can't get in the classroom at all. You must come to the field to deal with this. Let us go to the one where we're talking about upon which the foundation, the spirituality of ancient Egypt rests. We are talking now about the mystery system. And we have taken up Professor James's work, beautiful work as that, at which Richard Moore was alive and a few other people for us to deal with it. I wish Professor Seifert was around for us to really deal with how those thoughts were placed into order in the various works of Professor James before he wrote Stolen Legacy. The 8 papers which Professor James published that led up to Stolen Legacy. What it is that brought about the ancient Egyptian philosophy of God, the concept of God? What is it that brought the ancient Egyptian concept of theology to explain the theosophy? Was it an experience from a supernatural being coming from outer space, as most of us tend to believe in a hocus pocus? Was it some God that... My daughter was laughing at me doing charity.
Hold on, y'all.
After a couple of weeks, I made it my goal to reduce right over some part of Egypt and said, "Come here," and got up on top some hill and passed down a tablet or something. Was it any of that? No, none whatsoever. It was science. The ancient African used science as the foundation for religion. And I guess I should remove the word religion from that. As found in the documents, the ancient Africans in their writings dealt with the first concept of God. The universe and all there is in it. All explanation of the totality. This is the reason we start to talk about the universe in terms of a circle. But the ancient African faith at the center, that thing upon which the universe, that became this circle, the universe, was that which contains everything. And the ancient African said that within this circle, there are 4 quadrants. They didn't use the word quadrants as the English word, of course. But in the center of these 4 quadrants, in this circle, there is a centroid axis. And the ancient Africans projected this.
So there's a square.
And from that projection, and if you carry that to its extent, you will come back again.
And there's a triangle or pyramid.
This projection will be equal to that projection. But if you take this, let's take this or take this.
There's a square, y'all.
And we have this. Let's move this up and we have that.
There's a 6-pointed star.
Let's separate them. It's one pyramid and another pyramid.
So one pyramid and then one upside down.
Them two doesn't change.
So it's a reflection, right?
It is out of this. I'm sorry. And the projections of this that the ancient. But did this come from Egypt? Not at all. We see this in southern Africa among the Grimaldi. Go to the museum in the New York Museum of Anthropology down there at Central Park West, and you see the Grimaldi doing this.
The Grimaldi.
What is the difference? You still have the point of this in the secondary point, that is in the second point, that is it's still going to give you, the 4 quadrants is still going to give you the pyramidal sign. But did we break this down? It is here that the original concept came, that God is the center of the universe. And God, as the ancient God, was round.
Did y'all hear that?
Why R8? Translate R8 into English. R will be O, R is equal to the region. God sees and commands all that God sees. And that's what was the picture calling the mysteries. But then people went further and said what? A, B, and C. And out of that developed A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And all other types of algebraic calculation. And that was the mystery. When the Greeks came to Egypt, as a matter of fact, before they even came, when they were on the island of Samoa, when they were learning from the ancient Africans in language established by the ancient Africans, they could not understand this to be logical thing. If you come back from here, we stop, we stop. The God here, I would always see Tahuti, the God of measurement and the God of recording every event. There was nothing superfluous to him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters. There was nothing extraordinary to them. The ancient Africans were so acquainted with their traditions, acquainted what was the ordinary day of life for the common free. Mathematics was not surprising to them. They had mastered mathematics. And because they mastered mathematics, they mastered religion. They mastered the concept of the human feeling against the ancient African. When they did this, they equally introduced something which the Europeans cannot conceive of now. They showed the feather of truth, justice. Ma'at, as it's called today.
So Ma'at today would be the Libra, the scales of justice.
Auspice feather, again symbolically, like heart soul. The heart soul. And they put an eye here, two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Dealing with the heart. The ancient Greeks couldn't deal with this, and therefore they eventually put the symbol of existence, that arrow. They had to have violence going through that heart, just as they have violence in terms of making even the lullabies up to now that the present Europeans sing, Rockabye Baby, on the treetop. When the treetop baby, the baby gonna drop and break into two. And Humpty Dumpty on the wall, get the damn ball, bust up. And, you know, even the little rhymes for the little children go wind up into, murder or something. So think of this kind of thing. The ancient Africans from this, it is from this the ancient Africans used to conceive the possibility of God. The translation out of this came another aspect that the Africans see. Now we have the circular shape here, we have the circular shape here. And when we're talking, the ancient Africans started to revise methods by finding these chords. What did they mean? Out of this, the Africans did more. He reversed this and did this. He's finding the strength of things around him. Most of you young men are in engineering. It's not only for making a dollar, so you could buy a BMG and a G or B or something like that. These are spiritual dimensions. The ancient African, the moment happens here. The maximum moment in here. The moment. Listen to it. The moment that you reach the point of resistance and hit the fluidity of it, you're going to have a tragedy, right? Those who didn't believe. If you pass the moment after and pass the center of this, you go into a steering factor. The moment that there's a snap, You have that in religion. Religion was a scientific calculation by the ancient Egyptians. Excuse me for those of you who don't deal with strength of material and so forth that you may not understand, but you're supposed to understand it. What do you mean you don't understand it? You're an African, you're supposed to understand it. If we were taught as Africans, as our ancestors were teaching in the school, every one of you would have understood it because you would have been taught this. You would not have been taught only for its engineering characteristics to make a dollar to buy you some personal wealth. You would have been taught this to understand the spirituality that is involved with this. And this is the aspect that we have forgotten. We have forgotten this because the ancient Africans using the same thing said that represented the law of opposites. Huh? Law of opposites.
Law of opposites.
You don't have burnout.
Oh,
it's called
God.
cortisol addiction. Waking up at 3 a.m.
Hold on.
Unable to.
Oh, this is that. This is that. This is that. Everything you go, anytime you move from the center point, there is the opposite. You can carry that center point any place. There is an opposite. Anywhere you move it, it is something you said that you translated and said. In order, you cannot come up at this full speed, right? If you move from here, from the center to there, in order to stay within the first speed, this, although the distance from here to here is greater than the distance from here to here, the force here must be equal to the force there in order to stay in equilibrium. If you lie today, tomorrow you think. And tomorrow is not necessarily you lie on the 6th of December and you go pay for the 7th. You may pay on the 19th, 10,000 years later.
That's
The Europeans trying to adopt this concept could not deal with it in its Africanicity. Let's deal with it that your children will suffer unto the 7th generation for wrongdoing of yourself.
Did y'all hear the scripture? I think that's Deuteronomy 5:9.
Now, you see why we can't find Nubia? We can't see them because where is this stuff? We've got.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it here. So I showed the scripture that he's talking about maybe one or two videos ago. Okay, so let's go back to page 167. If you have any questions about that, put it in the comment section and I'll get to it. So next paragraph. The mapping out of the heavens, the measuring of time, and the revolution of the stars were conceived by the ancients for purposes of practical usage and human guidance. So human is Han Uman, so we have to correct that. It was for the use of man, the Sabian Moors, okay? For the use of the Sabian Moors, all right? Now remember, this paragraph is not talking about the Egyptians, the Kemites, and what we know as Egypt today. This is talking about before the migration down the Nile and the establishment of Egypt. So it's talking about Nubia, Uganda, Ethiopia, etc. All of those countries that Dr. Ben mentioned, they mapped out the heavens, okay? Their observations became facts and were recorded in their astronomical mythology. They observed and connoted with great accuracy the motions of the sun, sun, moon, and stars. So what do we get from this? I can tell you what it looks like to me. It looks like what we call ancient Egypt. Not talking about Nubia, but ancient Egypt that's so famous right now, and that the hybrids are always, they got their nose in. In my mind, maybe I'm wrong. I don't claim to know everything, but in my mind, this is sounding like the Yaqub story. Okay, so that mindset, the solar zodiac and the solar religion, that's not our original mindset. These things were forced upon the people, as I said, through warfare, deception, and birthright theft. All right? But anyway, next paragraph. In the biblical Genesis, we are told of divine creations, and that when they were accomplished, the Elohim, this is Genesis chapter 1, saw that everything was created good. Who were the Elohim? Mythical astronomy will tell us. The Elohim were the watchers in heaven. The seven sons were stars of the great God. Now that's celestial, right? That's celestial. Also, the seven great architects of the world, progenitors of man. We're talking about Genesis chapter 1. By their periodic revolution, heaven and earth, the upper and lower, night and day, darkness and light were created. Now, again, this is Genesis chapter 1. This is talking celestially, not flesh. Not flesh, how do I know? It says they were the watchers in heaven.